Hey guys, tonight we sail somewhere a little strange, a little soggy, and definitely not OSHA approved. You're on the deck of a creaking pirate ship, somewhere out in the blue nowhere. The sun's gone down, the sails are slack, and someone's snoring into a barrel. But not you. No, you've made a mistake. A terrible one. You've slept in someone else's hammock. It looked so inviting, didn't it? Slightly less damp, maybe even smelled more like rum than mildew. But that's the problem. That hammock belonged to Big Walter. And Big Walter has very strong feelings about his hammock, and very poor impulse control. You wake to shouting, laughter, and the unmistakable sound of someone fetching a bucket. The crew surrounds you, and the sentence is swift. No flogging. No plank. No drowning. Tonight you're sentenced to the wet watch. So, what is it? Well, you're going to sit on an upside-down bucket. Not on the main deck. Oh no, you're perched right next to the open latrine chute. Your task is simple. Hold a smaller bucket over your head and remain completely silent for the next 4 hours while the crew takes turns walking by and offering deeply sarcastic life advice. This, apparently, is what happens when you disrespect pirate property. Especially a hammock soaked with years of salty naps and sailor secrets. You're allowed to blink. But not sneeze. Sleepy yet? Historically, pirate crews, despite their outlaw reputation, maintained strict rules around shared property, sleeping arrangements, and personal space. Unlike Navy vessels, which enforce discipline top-down, pirate ships often use democratic codes enforced by consensus. These codes included punishment clauses that ranged from docking rum rations to more creative solutions. Some pirate crews did use flogging, but it was rare. It was loud, bloody, and left a crew member unable to work. What's the point in punishing someone by making them useless? So instead, ships often embrace punishments with high embarrassment and low bodily harm. Which brings us back to you, the bucket, and the smell. There are accounts, not many, and not always considered reliable, of pirates using non-lethal discomfort rituals to discipline crew. These could include deck sits, post stands, standing in the sun until collapse, or what one Caribbean account called the idiot stool. Likely a precursor to our soggy little drama here. Some punishments also involve role reversal. The person who broke a code might have to serve the person they offended. In this case, you're told that tomorrow, you'll be fluffing Big Walter's hammock for the next 3 nights with a fan made of fish bones. Of course, historians still argue whether pirates really had the time or inclination for such structured silliness. Some argue that these tales were exaggerated in later years, part of the romanticized pirate theater that flourished in the 18th and 19th centuries. Others suggest that humor was a vital tool in group cohesion, essential when you're stuck on a floating prison with 40 aggressive snorers. Now let's add a quirk. One French pirate ship allegedly had a rotating shame bell. If you were caught in someone else's bed, you had to wear the bell on your belt for a day, and every time it rang, you had to recite the ship's code out loud. No one is quite sure if this is true, or just a prank played on historians. But it does sound like something your current crew might do. So, as your eyes start to droop beneath the weight of your very heavy honor bucket, you reflect, maybe next time you'll sleep on the rope coils. They're only slightly itchy, and nobody's claimed them. Yet a soft snore echoes behind you. Big Walter. In his hammock. At peace, you're still on the bucket, and surprisingly, you're getting used to it. The stars glitter above. The waves rock below. Someone hums a shanty about an eel that married a swordfish. No one's watching you anymore. You could set the bucket down. But now it feels symbolic. This is pirate justice. And honestly, it's kind of comfy. It's morning, but you don't wake up. Because you never really slept. The bucket stayed on your head longer than anyone expected, mostly because you dozed off upright somewhere around hour 3 and drooled into your lap. You're stiff, sore, and still vaguely salty from the splash someone gave you as a wake-up high five. But your punishment isn't over yet. Now comes phase 2, the barrel of reflection. You know how, on land, someone might be told to sit and think about what they've done. Pirates took that very literally. They just added wood and public humiliation. You're escorted, by which I mean gently pushed with a mop handle, to a large, upright barrel bolted to the deck near the cook fire. The top's been sawed off. The inside is dark, cramped, and smells faintly of onions, rope grease, and whatever used to be stored in there. You're going in. The crew watches as you awkwardly climb inside, legs curled, arms hugging your knees. There's barely room to shift. Then someone nails a wooden placard to the outside. Thinking. And they leave you there. For a pirate crew, the barrel wasn't torture, it was theater. A warning. A gag. A lesson wrapped in ridicule. You're not in danger. You're just in limbo. Between crew member and punchline, actual pirate logs and memoirs, including those from the 18th century Golden Age, rarely list punishments as formal legal procedures. Instead, disciplinary measures were often social, mockery, exclusion, or brief physical discomfort designed to reintegrate the offender without harming morale or manpower. The barrel of reflection, while no official punishment by name, has analogues in maritime tradition. The Royal Navy, for example, occasionally confined misbehaving sailors in empty casks, partly as punishment, partly because there was literally nowhere else to isolate someone on a crowded ship. In one lesser-known 17th century account from a Dutch privateering ship, a sailor was punished for singing bawdy songs at the wrong time of day by being sealed in a barrel with only a hole for air and a small window to watch everyone else eat dinner. His crime? Breaking the ship's quiet hour. His punishment? Humiliation and misstew. Historians still argue whether these barrel practices were widespread or just oddball anecdotes. But given the creative, self-regulating nature of pirate crews, it wouldn't be surprising if at least some used the barrel as a tool of both discipline and entertainment. Inside your barrel, things are surprisingly contemplative. You listen to the ship creak and sway. You smell burned onions and something vaguely fishy. You hear Big Walter trying to sing harmony with a very uninterested parrot. And you realize something profound. You are never sleeping in anyone else's hammock again. After what feels like hours, though it might only be 30 minutes, you hear footsteps. A knock. You done reflecting? Someone calls. You say nothing. The lid is popped off. You squint at the light like a newborn mole. The crew cheers. Congratulations, says the cook. You're now emotionally mature. Someone throws a shrimp at you in celebration. It's unclear whether this is praise or another mild punishment. You step out of the barrel, a new person. Or at least a slightly stickier one. And now, you're back in the crew. That's the thing with pirate punishments. They weren't meant to ruin you. Just reset you. On a merchant ship or naval vessel, disobedience could mean lashes, chaining, or even execution. But pirates, for all their cutthroat reputation, often relied on group consensus. And group consensus had a sense of humor. The barrel was part confession booth, part clown car. And now that you've endured it, you'll notice something else. Every crew member has their own barrel story. Some did it for stealing rum. Some for hogging the spyglass. One guy spent a night in the barrel for refusing to eat a pickled radish. The radish was apparently the last fresh thing on board. A point of great contention. As evening creeps in, you're given back your normal duties, swabbing, stacking ropes, avoiding Big Walter's hammock like it's cursed. The air is cooler now. The waves quieter. A few gulls fly overhead, trailing the ship like they're waiting for someone to toss out a leftover biscuit. You glance at the barrel one last time. It still says, thinking. Maybe someone should change the sign. Maybe not. You're barely 2 steps back into your duties when someone shouts, "He's dancing again!" You freeze, because you know what that means. Another crewmate, per Ned this time, has just been sentenced to the infamous pirate punishment known only as dancing the hempen jig, without the rope. Now, don't panic. No one's getting hanged. Not today, anyway. See, pirates love dark humor, and nothing tickled their salty little hearts quite like twisting Navy terms into mock punishments. Hemp referred to the rope used in hangings. So a hempen jig was a gallows dance. Except, in this version, there's no gallows. Just music. And humiliation. Poor Ned has to dance. In front of everyone. Alone. Until the quartermaster says stop. A fiddler is dragged out, someone beats rhythm on a barrel lid, and Ned, who definitely does not know how to dance, begins a series of frantic hops, shuffles, and what might be interpretive gestures for "I regret my choices." The offense? He insulted the cook's eel stew, not with words. Just a face. A very loud face. Historically, this kind of punishment wasn't unique to pirates. Public shaming via forced performance, dancing, singing, reciting poems, was common across early modern Europe and often filtered into maritime culture. Navy ships sometimes forced young recruits to sing bawdy ballads or mimic officers as a kind of bonding exercise. Read, hazing. Pirates, unsurprisingly, turned these traditions up a notch. One notable pirate anecdote from a 1720s Jamaican port tells of a crew that made offenders dance until they collapsed, not out of cruelty, but because they found the collapsing bit hilarious. "The man shivered out his shame like a monkey on fire," wrote one very amused witness. Historians still debate whether this sort of punishment fostered unity or just deep, mutual embarrassment. Was it a ritual of reintegration? Or just an elaborate excuse to laugh at Ned's knees? You watch as Ned continues his shuffle, now accompanied by a completely out-of-tune sea shanty and several crew members trying, and failing, to clap on beat. Someone throws a banana peel onto the deck. The dance becomes a skidding hazard course that you're not sure what the lesson is. Maybe. Don't judge eel stew. Maybe. Learn to waltz. Ned finishes with a pirouette so wide he spins straight into the sail rigging. Thunderous applause. And just like that, he's forgiven. This was how pirate crews often diffuse tension, through mockery and spectacle. When you're stuck with 30 men and one parrot for months on end, it helps to turn conflict into cabaret. And while it sounds ridiculous now, the line between humor and hierarchy mattered. These rituals were one way of saying, "You messed up, but we still need you," and also, "You looked hilarious." As the music fades and Ned bows with the grace of a broken accordion, you're handed a mop again. Routine resumes. The deck needs swabbing. The ropes need coiling. And you definitely do not want to be the next one dancing the jig. But here's the twist. Some pirates actually like this punishment. It was attention. A guaranteed laugh. A brief, absurd spotlight in an otherwise grim life. One account from the Barbary Coast described a pirate named Iskandar who volunteered to dance every time someone was punished, just to make it more entertaining. The crew let him. They even gave him a stage name, the Sultan of Shuffles. It's unclear whether Iskandar was ever actually guilty of anything, or just an extrovert with really nimble feet. Now back to you. You swab the deck in silence, grateful no one's looking your way, until someone hands you a drum. "Wait. What?" "Just in case we need another beat," says the bosun. You hold it awkwardly. You're not sure whether this is a responsibility or a warning. The stars start coming out. The wind picks up. The air smells faintly of lemon oil and regret, and somewhere on the far side of the ship, you hear someone humming that off-key shanty again. You glance toward the fiddler corner. Empty. Good. You return to swabbing, and quietly practice your two-step, just in case. You're still thinking about Ned's impromptu jig when someone thumps a wooden tool into your hand. It's long, tapered, slightly splintery. Smells like old tar and salt. A marlinspike, and your stomach sinks. Because you've just been volunteered for the dreaded marlinspike massage, a punishment that sounds pleasant, right up until it begins. This one isn't technically listed in any pirate code. It falls into that murky category of crew traditions, which usually means someone made it up once and now we're stuck with it. Still, its reputation endures, part joke, part hazing, part half-hearted chiropractic experiment. Your crime? You broke a coil of rope, not like snapped it. Just uncoiled it badly. A loop here, a tangle there. You tried to fix it, but by then, 3 crewmates had already tripped and cursed you in 3 languages. Now, you're told to sit shirtless near the mainmast. Everyone's watching. A burly sailor, known only as Knuckles, steps forward, carrying 2 marlinspikes. If you're unfamiliar, a marlinspike is a pointed tool used to splice ropes, untangle knots, or occasionally gesture menacingly toward misbehaving parrots. In this case, it's also a disciplinary instrument. You brace yourself, and then Knuckles begins tapping, not stabbing, not scraping. Just tapping. Lightly. Methodically. All across your back, shoulders, and upper arms. It's ridiculous. Almost ticklish. But somehow also vaguely threatening, like a toddler threatening you with a spoonful of soup. The goal isn't pain. It's humiliation, and not just for you. The crew watches in silence. One man hums a tune. Another offers unsolicited commentary on your shoulder posture. After a while, the tapping shifts into a slow, dull poke. Knuckles mutters things like, "This knot's no good," or, "Tension here, too much seaweed in the spirit." He's making it up. He knows it. Everyone knows it. That's the point. This isn't a punishment. It's performance art. Historically, the marlinspike was never used as a weapon, unless someone was really desperate. But there are scattered mentions in sailor lore of using tools for pseudo-medical rituals, especially to tap the mischief out. These fringe practices often bordered on superstition, especially on long voyages where boredom and belief formed strange hybrids. 1748 logbook describes a first mate who performed rope-loosening therapies, using marlinspikes on junior crew. The stated reason? To ease the knots within the man. The real reason? Most likely boredom, and a taste for elaborate nonsense. Historians still argue whether these rituals were genuinely believed to heal, or simply tolerated as morale-boosting theater. Either way, they worked. Sort of. Back on your ship, Knuckles finishes with a flourish and taps the top of your head like a bell. There. All clear, he declares. You're told to stand and do a full turn. The crew claps. Someone throws a sardine, and then you're free. Oddly, you do feel a little looser. Your humiliation has reached its end, until, of course, the bosun hands you the marlinspike and says, "Your turn." You blink. Me? Apparently, tradition states that the punished becomes the punisher. You're now expected to perform the same ritual on the next offender, which, as fate would have it, is currently being selected by a very animated parrot screeching at the mess cook. The bird has opinions. You look at the marlinspike. You look at the cook. He sighs and takes off his apron, muttering about the old ways. And suddenly, you're tapping his back, murmuring things like, "A lot of nautical stress in this muscle group." The crew roars with laughter. You're in on the joke now, This, weirdly, is pirate justice, not violence, not vengeance. Just a strange, slow dance of discomfort and public theater, meant to return you to the fold one tap at a time. The sun dips low. The horizon glows. And you gently poke the cook's left shoulder blade while declaring, "Here lies the knot of betrayal." He nods solemnly. Somewhere below deck, someone's drawing lots to determine who has to clean the fish barrels. You're beginning to think that might be preferable. But at least it won't involve marlin spikes. Probably. You're starting to think maybe things are settling down. You've survived the bucket, the barrel, the jig, even the world's most awkward marlin spike spa treatment. Your dignity? Hanging by a thread. But you're still standing. Still vaguely part of the crew, until you're caught near the water barrel. And not just near it, you're seen lifting the lid and peering in suspiciously. That's enough, because now the crew thinks you're checking the rum. Which brings us to one of the weirdest, most petty, and most paranoia-fueled punishments aboard any pirate ship. The vinegar trick. It begins when someone shouts, "He's planning to spike the water!" You try to explain. You were just thirsty. You were wondering if there were floaty things. You weren't looking for rum, or planning a swap. Too late. The punishment? For the next 3 days, your water ration will be special. Special equals vinegar flavored. They hand you a full mug. It looks normal. But your first sip tells you everything. Sour, sharp, acidic. Not quite enough to make you gag, but enough to ruin your day. And your breath. Welcome to your vinegar sentence. Historically, pirates held their alcohol supply sacred. While rum was often diluted to prevent fights and conserve stock, tampering with it, or appearing to, was a serious offense. Some crews punished rum thieves with floggings. Others went creative. Water was rationed just as carefully. On long voyages, it could grow slimy or moldy. Vinegar was sometimes added to preserve it, but here, it's just punitive. Your rations are now technically drinkable, but every gulp tastes like sour socks. 1 17th century French privateer logbook records a punishment where a sailor suspected of watering down the crew's grog was forced to drink nothing but salted vinegar water for a full week. He emerged clean on the inside but wholly broken in taste. The writer noted with remarkable flair. Historians still argue whether pirates actually used vinegar as a regular punishment, or if these tales came from embellished sailor memoirs written for laughs. But given how much of pirate justice was theatrical and symbolic, a drink-based humiliation seems entirely plausible. And now it's your turn. You carry your vinegar flask with you all day. It's clearly marked with a cheerful skull and crossbones. People stop and sniff the air as you pass. One crew member swears he got heartburn just by standing near you. The cook offers you pickles in solidarity. You're not sure if it's a peace offering or a joke. By day 2, you've started craving the sour. You've adapted. You're thriving. You feel powerful. The vinegar is now your identity. You start offering unsolicited wisdom in a deep, raspy tone. A clean gut is a clear mind. No one listens. But it makes you feel mysterious. By day 3, a rumor starts that you chose vinegar. That you prefer it. That it gives you visions. Someone claims they saw you speaking to the wind in perfect Latin. You let the myth grow. After all, it's better than being known as the guy who thought the water barrel looked suspicious. Eventually, the punishment ends. Quietly. No ceremony. You just get handed a mug of plain water one morning with a shrug. It tastes bland. You miss the bite. But you've learned your lesson. Don't hover near the barrels. And always carry a backup pickle. You're almost dry from the vinegar haze when your name gets pulled again. This time, it's for something simple. Stupid even, you forgot to oil the pulley ropes. Now the captain's favorite rigging squeaks when the wind shifts. It's the only thing he hears. That high, wincing eek that cuts through conversation, dreaming, and even, somehow, soup. And so, in the great pirate tradition of turning tiny errors into enormous discomforts, you're assigned to barnacle duty. No, you're not cleaning the outside of the ship. That's for port. This is interior barnacle duty. Specifically, scraping dried salt, crusted grime, and suspicious bits from beneath the deck floorboards and hull curves in full daylight, shirtless. Why shirtless? Because it's noon, and this is about humiliation as much as labor. One sailor hands you a scraper. Another hands you a very wide-brimmed straw hat, which you are told is optional but highly recommended. You squat beside the side rail, the sun already licking your shoulders, and begin scraping. Flakes of ancient sea crud puff into the air like confetti for the extremely disappointed. You sweat. You wheezed out. A crab watches you judgmentally from a bucket. Historically, barnacle scraping, also called careening, was done during major ship maintenance when pirates beached their vessels to clean and repair the hull. But on long voyages, interior buildup could still occur from salt spray, spillage, and humidity. So crews developed a chore system, sometimes turning it into punishment for minor infractions. In one 1697 account, a Spanish Caribbean pirate ship reportedly forced a sailor to scrape the bilge bloom daily for 2 weeks after he was caught drawing mustaches on the ship's logbook portraits. The punishment wasn't physical, it was just unbearable to the nose. And here you are, reliving the tradition. Your back sizzles under the sun. You wonder whether salt crystals are now permanently bonded to your spine. You think you've become one with the hull, an extension of the ship. A barnacle yourself. Someone offers you water. It's not vinegar this time. Progress. A nearby crewman suggests you name the crab. You decide on Captain Flakes. He seems unimpressed. Then comes the second half of barnacle duty, the deck ritual. Every piece you scrape off must be deposited into a line of small piles near the mast. No one's sure why. Probably some tradition no one remembers, but everyone insists it matters. Once the piles are made, a vote is held. Is it enough? Sometimes the crew says yes, and you're released. Sometimes they say no, and you must rearrange the piles into a frowny face. If the captain laughs, you're done. If not, you start over. You begin sculpting with resignation. You add little salt eyebrows. Someone hums a funeral dirge in the background. The frown earns a chuckle. You're free. Your skin is sticky. Your pride is eroding. But you've escaped again, scraped free like the barnacles themselves. Historians still debate whether pirate ships actually imposed these kinds of mock ceremonies around cleaning duties or whether they were later inventions of retired sailors who found audiences more willing to believe absurdity than reality. But it aligns with what we know about pirate culture, humor, spectacle, and community-based discipline that didn't break bodies, just egos. By nightfall, you slump against the rail, arms sore, chest patchy with mystery specks. Someone offers you stew. You decline. Captain Flakes watches. You nod solemnly. The crab nods back. Tomorrow, someone else will forget something. Or sneeze wrong. Or say the word, mermaid, during dinner. That's a whole other superstition. And when they do, you'll be the one whistling while they scrape. Maybe you'll even lend them your straw hat. There are punishments, and then there are warnings with saltwater teeth. Today, you're getting the latter. The crime? Speaking during quiet hour. Which sounds gentle, even monastic, until you learn that it happens during the hottest part of the day, when tempers stew like old fish guts, and the captain tries to nap. You sneezed. Twice. Loudly. And now you're being assigned to one of the oldest, strangest pirate traditions still in use aboard this particular ship, sharkbait ladders. Here's the setup. The ship slows. Sails trimmed. Someone tosses scraps overboard, chum, bones, rotten onions, and something that might have once been a mango. Then they lower the side rope ladder and tell you to climb down. Not all the way, just far enough that your bare feet dangle about a foot above the waterline. Your job, stay there. Feet swinging. For 2 hours. Alone. The goal isn't to feed you to sharks. It's to remind you that you could be fed to sharks. There's no flogging. No yelling. Just the whisper of water, the groan of rope, and your own imagination spiraling downward. You glance into the waves. Something glints. Something moves. Maybe a fish. Maybe a shadow. Maybe your own reflection, blinking nervously. Historically, pirates rarely used the plank. It's one of those cinematic inventions that stuck around because it felt true. But dangling a sailor overboard as warning? That has legs. In some 17th and early 18th century maritime logs, ladder duty was cited as a punishment for minor crimes like backtalk, superstition breaking, or hoarding garlic cloves. One account from a Barbary corsair mentions a sailor suspended in a sling under the ship's bow for mocking the crew's prayer rituals. He stayed there for 3 hours, counting fish, and came back up much quieter. Modern historians still argue whether these accounts were dramatized, but there's a consistent pattern. Pirate punishments emphasize fear, not force. Make someone think they're in danger, and the lesson sticks without needing blood. Back on your rope ladder, time drips slowly. The sun hammers your neck. The ropes creak. You become one with the sway of the ship, your feet tracing soft arcs over the seafoam. You hear something splash. Far away. Or close. Hard to say. Someone above tosses you a crust of biscuit. You drop that, they warn. And we call it a sighing. You hold it tight. Below, the water gleams like glass with secrets under it. Your toes curl reflexively every time something brushes your imagination. Then comes the real challenge. Again, they lower a second rope. From it hangs a jug of water. You're told to retrieve it using only your toes. Why? For dexterity, they say. But really, it's just funnier that way. You try. The jug wobbles. Slips. Dunks. Cheers erupt from above. The crew's entertained. That means you're doing your job. As the punished, you try again. Success. The jug lifts. You awkwardly sip it sideways. Warm. Slightly lemony. Probably from someone's leftover footbath. Still, it's drinkable. An hour passes. Then 2. Maybe more. You lose track. Eventually, a hand appears, pulling the ladder up. You're soaked in sweat, slightly sunburned, and have a new respect for silent afternoons. The punishment ends not with a scolding, but with a pat on the back and a quiet nod from the captain. You've done your time. You've dangled your shame. And now, you'll probably never sneeze again. At least not without apology. You're just starting to relax again, feet dry, hammock reclaimed, your own, this time, dignity hovering at 17%, when a crewmate casually hands you something strange. A small scrap of parchment, smeared with ink, featuring a black circle in the center. No words, just a black spot. You look up. The crew stares back. Not angry. Just waiting. Welcome to the punishment, known as the black spot. Light edition. It's not the legendary death mark. Not today. This is the diluted, homebrew version, a passive-aggressive pirate prank pass between crewmates when someone has annoyed just enough people to merit a warning, but not enough to merit actual consequences. And you've been muttering in your sleep, loudly, something about hiding a chicken in the ship's bell. The crew doesn't know what it means, but now they're nervous. Or at least curious enough to respond. Hence the spot. You hold the paper in your hand and wait, because this punishment isn't about what they do. It's about what you think might happen. Historically, the black spot appears most famously in literature, Treasure Island, most notably, but some scholars argue it may have roots in real maritime practice. Secret symbols, unsigned notes, and coded threats weren't uncommon in sailor culture. Especially when crews didn't want open conflict but needed a behavior check. Some privateer crews in the 17th century were said to use curses on cloth, scraps inked with symbols, dropped silently onto bunks or food bowls. Were they serious? Maybe. Maybe not. The ambiguity was the punishment. Historians still argue whether the black spot was ever used at sea or if it was invented entirely by land-based writers who never risked a storm, let alone a sword fight. But this crew has adopted it, made it their own, and today it's yours. After you receive the spot, you're expected to carry it. For how long? That depends. Some say until the ink fades. Others say until you guess what you did. And one tells you if either is true. You walk the deck with it tucked behind your ear. You sleep with it under your pillow. Someone hums when you pass by, same tune every time. A slow, off-key lullaby that sounds vaguely like a warning. By day 2, you've apologized to the ship's bell. Just in case. By day 3, someone replaces your spoon with a ladle. You use it without comment. The captain, when asked, shrugs and says, "Could mean something. Could mean nothing." That's the fun of it. This is what the crew calls quiet discipline. Less punishment, more prolonged unease. They never mention it aloud again. But once, during dinner, you find the spot slipped under your bowl. Again, eventually it disappears. Gone from your bunk. No ceremony. You're either forgiven or forgotten. You're not sure which feels better. Still, you sleep lighter. Speak less in dreams. And you check the bell for poultry before every shift, just in case. You're halfway through your morning biscuit, dry, dependable, a bit like chewing a barn door, when someone bangs a spoon against the mainmast and shouts, "Parrot Court is now in session!" Every pirate within earshot groans, laughs, or scurries for a seat. You freeze mid-chew. Because today's case is you. The charge? Suspicious mop behavior. You blink. Someone elaborates. You were seen whispering to it. Repeatedly. Late at night. You try to explain it was a song. A habit. You were bored. But it's too late. The captain steps aside, and onto the deck waddles the court's presiding judge, Captain Beekman. A parrot. A rather old, suspiciously well-fed African gray with one eye and a permanent look of bureaucratic disappointment. The crew member assigned is Beekman's voice. This time it's Slim Bill, who does impressions, perches dramatically beside him, arms crossed. Slim is not Slim. All rise! Bill squawks on behalf of the bird. You, accused of mop courting, stand before this honorable parrot and his glorious eyebrow. The parrot has no eyebrows. No one cares. You're dragged to a chalk-drawn circle in the center of the deck. The trial ring. Someone places a fake feathered wig on the parrot. It falls off immediately. 2 men cheer. The prosecution? That'll be Hatchet John, who once studied law in Port Royal for exactly 2 weeks before setting the building on fire by accident. He's ready with a satchel of hand-drawn evidence, all stick figures, all suspiciously buff. The charge sheet reads, 1 count of mop affection. 1 count of late-night floorboard serenades. 2 counts of whispering secrets to inanimate objects. Potential mutiny-level offense. You're asked how you plead. You shrug. Guilty of boredom? The court murmurs. Slim Bill as Beekman squawks. We'll allow it. This is not punishment in the traditional sense. It's more like theatrical humiliation meets stress relief. It's also a cherished tradition aboard this particular vessel, dating back to a time when one sailor tried to sue a goat for theft. The Goat 1. Historically, pirate crews often developed elaborate mock trials, especially on long voyages when tensions simmered. These rituals served a double purpose. They let crew members air grievances without bloodshed, and they turned potential feuds into farcical group events. In some 18th century accounts, privateers from mixed Dutch and English crews staged full-blown legal dramas, complete with judges, scribes, and jury crabs. The crabs, it was said, were nonpartisan. Historians still argue whether these parrot-led spectacles existed or were post-voyage exaggerations. But considering how often pirates turn chores into rituals and pranks into procedures, it's not far-fetched. Your trial continues. Hatchet John presents Exhibit A, a damp mop. He waves it accusingly. It has clearly been befriended, he declares. Its fibers are softened. Its bucket, warm. The crew ooze. Then comes cross-examination. Slim Bill as Beekman demands answers. Do you love the mop? He demands. I admire its work ethic. You respond. Do you dream of a mop-led rebellion? Only on Tuesdays. Have you whispered tactical information into its soapy ears? It has no ears. So you admit it. Laughter erupts. A crew member begins sketching the scene for posterity, or maybe just for fun. You can't tell. Then comes the sentence. The court, declares the parrot voice, finds you moderately guilty and extremely weird. You are hereby sentenced to. He pauses for effect. Defend yourself with interpretive dance. Groans. Cheers. You groan louder. Someone starts playing the fiddle, off-key. You begin your dance. It's mostly stomping, mop twirling, and one attempted cartwheel that nearly ends your career. The parrot flaps once. Approvingly? Hard to say. Slim Bill bangs a spoon on the mast. Case dismissed. Long live mop neutrality. The crew disperses, laughter fading across the deck. You're left with the mop. And your thoughts. And a mop-sized hat someone's left nearby as a parting gift. You pick it up, place it gently on the mop head, and whisper, Objection sustained. You're still trying to recover your dignity from the parrot court fiasco, although to be fair, the mop seemed flattered, when you hear it. A squelch, then a pop, then a long, wet plorp that echoes far too close to your boots. You turn, and see the bucket, not just any bucket, the bucket stained, sea-warped, and brimming with something brownish pink and twitching. Welcome to your next punishment, fish gut furlough. Your crime? An offhand insult about the cooks. Mystery stew. You thought it was clever. If the stew had more identity, it might qualify as seafood. You were wrong. The cook heard you. The cook smiled. And now? You are assigned to gutting duty for the foreseeable future. Maybe 3 days. Maybe 10. No one will say. Because this is not a confined punishment. You're free to move around the ship, so long as your hands are always somewhere in that bucket. It follows you. Literally. Someone's rigged it with a leather strap. It hangs from your neck like a grotesque bib of doom. Your job, keep gutting. The fish arrive like clockwork, dumped into the bucket every hour by 2 particularly gleeful crewmates. No explanations, no mercy. They shout, Special delivery! As if they're delivering birthday cakes. And the smell is heroic. You've encountered bilge water. You've scraped dried eel bits from anchor chains. You've spent an afternoon trapped in a hammock with someone else's socks. But none of it compares to this. The scent blooms in the sun. It colonizes your pores. You sneeze fish scales. Your dreams smell like halibut. You try to get clever, gut with gloves. They confiscate them. You try to hide under a tarp. Someone lifts it and tosses in a still wiggling cod. Eventually you stop resisting. Historically, pirate ships needed someone to handle fish preparation, especially on voyages far from fresh food ports. But when crews were angry or bored, that task became a perfect sentence for unwanted behavior. Gutting fish was messy, smelly, and totally necessary. Punishment disguised as contribution. 11721 logbook entry from a Portuguese English crew describes. The offender's hands turned pink for 2 tides, as he was tasked with gut work for 7 dawns. Historians still argue whether these roles were enforced as punishments, or simply passed off to whoever complained the loudest that day. But many records agree, gut duty was a social low point. The fringe layer? Some sailors believed that touching enough fish guts could ward off bad dreams. Others claimed it made you lucky at dice. One pirate even wore a necklace made of dried fish eyes. He won 3 fights and a marriage proposal. You, however, are not lucky. By day 2, the bucket is part of you. You name it. You sing to it. You beg it to stop producing shrimp with legs like tiny whips. Your fellow pirates give you wide berth. Some out of pity. Others to avoid the splash zone. At night, the smell follows you below deck. Your hammock is suspended above the galley. For airflow. You're convinced it's revenge placement. And then, on day 4, something changes. You're handed a mackerel. Already cleaned. You stare. The cook grins. Test. You inspect it. Clean. Scaled. Intact. You pass it back. He nods. Furlough complete. Just like that, it's over. The bucket is removed. Your hands are pink. Your shirt is retired. You spend the rest of the evening standing silently on the deck, breathing clean air like a luxury. A crewmate approaches and hands you a biscuit. It tastes like fish, you say. He shrugs. Everything does now. You accept it anyway. You thought your punishment days might be over. But this morning, the ship wakes to a sound no sailor wants to hear. Squeak. It's faint, but unmistakable. A soft, whining cry echoing from somewhere in the rigging. A rope pulley in need of grease. The captain's face turns to stone. He hates squeaks. Hates them with the kind of silent fury usually reserved for mutiny or improperly tied knots. Who was on rigging duty yesterday? He asks too quietly. Everyone suddenly forgets how to point. Except one guy. He points directly at you. And that's how you earn your next punishment. The squeaky pulley test. It sounds simple. Grease the pulleys. All of them. Every single one. But here's the twist. No one will tell you which one squeaked. You must climb every rope ladder, every mast, every spar, and test each pulley in complete silence. And the test isn't complete until the captain personally stands on deck and hears nothing. This could take hours. Or days. Depending on wind. On angle. On the crew's mood. It begins with the grease, thick, amber, and somehow both sticky and slippery. It smells like rotten olives and old promises. You climb the rigging with a bucket hanging from your belt, a cloth between your teeth, and a growing sense of dread. The first pulley you check? Fine. Second one? Fine. Third one? Squeak. You grease it, test again, and move on. But after 20 pulleys the wind shifts. And that one you already fixed? Squeaks again. It's maddening. Historically, rigging maintenance was critical on pirate ships. A jammed or faulty pulley could cost lives during a storm or skirmish. While daily maintenance was a shared duty, punishment by pulley grease appears in scattered sailor lore, especially as a correction for forgetfulness or negligence. 11704 journal mentions a young crewmate assigned to grease duty who tried to bribe the parrot to squeak for him, so he could fake the test. It didn't work. The parrot just said squeak, on loop for weeks. Historians still argue whether pulley punishment was real or just sailor exaggeration, like grog dilution revenge, or the mythical sleep while suspended sentence. But it tracks with pirate logic. Fix the problem thoroughly, or hear about it forever. Back on deck, you finish your 6th round of testing. You've become one with the ropes. Your fingers smell like warm sap and metal. You've stopped naming the pulleys. They've started naming you. Finally, the captain steps out. He listens. Nothing. He closes his eyes. Wind blows. Still nothing. He nods. Acceptable. He walks away. You exhale. Then a quiet squeak. Everyone freezes. Your soul escapes your body. The captain turns slowly. Was that the mizzen block? You gulp. Someone clears their throat. Or your boots, sir? He frowns. Lifts a foot. Walks in a slow circle. Squeak. 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 His face darkens. He turns back to you. Polish my boots, he says. Quietly. You nod. Because after what you've been through, polishing is paradise. The biscuit is green, not just a little green, not. Maybe it brushed against some moss. Green. This biscuit looks like it lost a bar fight with a kelp forest and then fell asleep in the bilge. You poke it. It pokes back. Your punishment today, the rotten biscuit rule. You got caught stealing. Technically, it was just a sliver of dried apple. Barely the size of a fingernail. You didn't even swallow it. You just held it in your cheek to feel fancy. Unfortunately, it belonged to old toothless Gabe, who guards his snacks like buried treasure. Now, your sentence is simple. You may eat only ship's biscuit for the next 3 days. And not the good kind. Not even the slightly tolerable, crunchy with a chance of weevil kind. These are the biscuits. Stored too long, damp at the edges. Possibly whispering out there so hard, one comes with a splinter warning. Another seems to have fossilized a fly mid-struggle. One biscuit might actually be a rock. Still, you must eat them. Breakfast, biscuit. Lunch, biscuit. Dinner, biscuit. A la water. If you're lucky, you try soaking one. It floats. Mockingly, you try pounding one with the butt of a musket. The musket bends. Historically, hardtack, or ship's biscuit, was a staple of life at sea. Made from flour and water, it was baked to the consistency of gilt and stored in barrels for months, or years. Sailors often had to tap them on the table to scare out the bugs before eating. The green tinge? Not uncommon. If mold crept in, some pirates scraped it off. Others claimed it. Added flavor. A few unfortunate souls swore it made them hallucinate polite seagulls. Some privateer logs describe biscuit punishment for minor thefts. Not because it starved the offender, but because it humiliated them. You'd eat publicly. Slowly. Crunching like a skeleton doing the tango. Historians still debate whether the worst biscuits were saved intentionally for discipline, or just naturally filtered to the bottom of the barrel over time. But the message was clear: steal food, and we'll make you wish you were hungry again. Back in your hammock, you examine your 3rd biscuit of the day. It's shaped like a boot heel and smells like rope. A crewmate walks by and hands you a sliver of cheese, then snatches it back. Temptation is part of the lesson, he says, grinning. By the 2nd day, you're talking to your biscuits. By the 3rd, you've named them. One's called Reginald. He's your favorite. You gnaw his corner like a penitent rodent. Then, relief. A soft thump by your elbow. A piece of dried mango. Contraband. You glance up. No one's watching. You lean in. Sniff, and then you place it gently in Reginald's hollow and say, "One more day, my friend. We endure together." That night, someone carves a smiling face into one of your biscuits. You don't know who, but you sleep better, and when the punishment ends, the cook brings you something warm, soft, and almost edible. You cry into your stew. You're enjoying your first bite of stew post-biscuit punishment when someone slides a musket ball across the table. Just one. Dented. Scratched. Heavy. You recognize it. It's yours. From your stash of wager balls, a pirate's answer to poker chips, dice, and IOUs rolled into one small sphere of iron. You pick it up slowly. There's laughter behind you. Because now, you owe. Welcome to musket ball wagering, where the bets are strange, the stakes unpredictable, and losing means punishment. In this case, you wagered a musket ball on the cook's parrot being able to say stew in 3 languages. It could only manage 2. So you lost. Normally, you just pay with another musket ball or do someone else's chore. But today, someone invokes iron stomach rule. You don't like the sound of that. Turns out, the punishment this time is swallowing your wager. Not fired, not melted, not sharp. Just swallowed. Cold, round, miserable. This isn't lethal, not usually. The ball's small enough to pass through, eventually. The crew even keeps track with chalk. Swallowed bets 6, recovered 5, 1. TBD. You protest. You started it, says the quartermaster. You bet the bird. Fair point. So you prepare. The musket ball gets washed. Dried. Dipped in oil, then rum. You appreciate the garnish. And then, down it goes, slow. Heavy. Utterly unpleasant. The crew roars with applause. You get a slice of lemon and a pat on the back. Historically, pirates and privateers often used musket balls as currency for onboard bets. Coins were scarce and easy to lose, but musket balls? They rolled, they stacked, and they felt like real stakes. While swallowing them wasn't standard, some logs mention eating the loss, in a literal sense. One infamous 1718 account jokes that a gunner ate 2 rounds and begged for cheese. Historians still argue whether musket ball swallowing was real or exaggerated gallows humor. But there are enough scattered mentions, some deadly serious, others darkly comic, that scholars tend to say, probably rare, but not impossible. You spend the next few hours feeling like a human cannon. Every step, clunk. Every burp, metallic. Someone hands you a tin cup of water and says, "Drink until you float." You do. The next morning, the surgeon, who is also the ship's juggler, declares the experiment a success, mainly because you're still upright. He hands you a small drawing, a pirate with a musket ball bouncing around his ribs like a pinball. You hang it by your hammock with pride. From then on, the parrot only says stew, once, and only when you're around. You suspect it's mocking you. The map is ruined, not torn, not stolen, just soggy, utterly, tragically, ruinously soggy. You were supposed to keep it safe. Just hold it. Nothing fancy. Then it started to drizzle. Then you tripped over a coil of rope. Then a barrel tipped over, and well, the rest is pulp. Now you hold a limp sheet of salted paper that looks more like soup than cartography. The captain stares at you. Then he points to a crate. On top of it, quills, ink, a fresh sheet of parchment, and a bucket to catch the rain dripping through the deck above. Your punishment, soggy map recopying. You're to recreate the ruined chart. By hand. From memory. INA storm.no gloves. No assistance. Just the rhythmic drip 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 of rain and the knowledge that every smudge could steer the ship into disaster. The map was basic. A chain of islands, a few reef warnings, some wind notes. You think you remember where the compass rose was. You hope the scale wasn't 1 inch equals too much. You dip your quill. A wave slaps the hull. Ink splatters. You start over. Historically, pirates valued maps, but not always for treasure. More often, they marked safe harbors, watering holes, enemy routes, or hidden caches of supplies. Charts were precious and often unique, especially when compiled by the crew over time, and if one got damaged, Recopying by the offender wasn't unheard of. A 1690 ship's record mentions a blunder is set to redraft our sacred scrap beneath leaking boards, where he will remain until he appreciates longitude. That particular offender later invented his own compass rose. It resembled a fish. It did not help. Historians still argue whether map punishments were widespread or limited to crews with more literate officers, but many agree anything that put the ship at risk was a serious offense, even if the risk came from a soggy thumbprint. You're on your fifth attempt. The parchment curls. The ink bleeds. Your compass rose looks like a startled spider. A crewmate passes by, glances down, and says, "That reef's in the wrong place. Unless you want us kissing coral?" You sigh and crumple it again. By nightfall, you've gone through half the ink and most of your patience. Your fingers are smudged blue. Your boots squish when you walk. You haven't blinked in hours. But finally, you finish. The lines aren't perfect. The islands lean a little left. But it's legible. Labeled. Even kind of charming. You present it to the captain. He squints. "HM," he mutters. "Bit more character than the original." He pins it to the map wall with a rusty nail and walks away. You are released. You slump beside the crate and vow never to touch another map again. But secretly, you kind of liked it. Especially the part where your compass rose looked a bit like a dancing octopus. You don't even hear your name called, just the first few notes of a concertina. Then a clatter of boots gathering in a semicircle, and then, your cue. Time for your sea shanty. You blink. Surely, there's been a mistake. But no. This is your final punishment. You are to deliver a public apology in sea shanty form. It's not optional. Your crime? You insulted the captain's singing voice. In passing. Barely audible. You were sleepy. You said, "He sings like a bag of startled goats." You didn't think he heard. He heard. And now you must make it right, with music. Someone hands you a scroll. It's your lyrics. Already written by the bosun, who once fancied himself a poet. The title? "Sorry I mocked the goat song." Great. You clear your throat. The crew hushes. A few cover their mouths. One pulls out a tin cup to bang in time. The tune begins, lilting, bouncy, deeply humiliating. You sing, musical note. "I once was a sailor, so foolish and bold, I mocked our dear captain, whose voice shakes the hold. But now I stand guilty, my tone was too coarse, so I'll sing of his ballads, and pray for remorse." Musical note. The crowd howls with laughter. The captain taps his toe. The parrot joins in with an offbeat squawk. You dance, not well, but with sincerity. You wave your arms, you stomp in rhythm. The chorus repeats. There's a second verse. It references the goats again, and then, mercifully, it ends. Someone tosses you a lemon wedge like a bouquet. You bow. Historically, public apology songs were real, though rarely this melodic. Sailor culture valued pride and insulted easily, but also offered oddball paths to redemption. Singing a goofy tune could diffuse tension. And if you sang badly enough, even better. Some 18th century ships kept punishment verses, ready to go, reused lyrics with blank lines for names and crimes. They functioned like mad libs for shame. Historians still argue whether such songs were sincere apologies or structured humiliation disguised as team building. The answer might be both. You retire to your hammock, your dignity? Gone, your reputation? Slightly enhanced. People love a good fool. And your punishment record? Finally, full circle. You've endured every non-plank, non-lethal, weirdly artistic punishment this ship has to offer. Buckets. Songs. Maps. Fish. And now, soft silence. And so, with your final tune still echoing faintly on the salt air, you return to stillness. The deck creaks gently beneath you. Ropes hum in the breeze. That parrot mutters, "Goat," one last time and then drifts to sleep. You lie back in your hammock, clean this time, claimed fair and square. No buckets nearby. No biscuit in your hand. Just the slow rhythm of waves brushing the hull, the occasional shuffle of a boot, and the comforting thought that, for tonight, at least, no one's planning your next punishment. You trace the edge of your old mop friend with your toe. Its handle's been polished. Its bristles soft. It forgave you, eventually. Somewhere above, the sails flap lazily, catching dreams like old ghosts. The stars stretch wide across the sky, steady and indifferent. The moon is fat and hazy, too sleepy to bother judging anyone tonight. You breathe in salt and old wood and something almost like peace that you're safe. For now, sleep comes slowly, gently, without ceremony, just the way pirates liked it. Once they'd run out of songs to sing, fish to gut, and biscuits to bite. And old trials. No buckets. No squeaks. Only soft snoring, rocking hammocks, and dreams that smell faintly of lemons and ink. Good night, sailor. Rest well.